What's up, guys? Welcome to the Saturday show. Now on Saturdays, I like to go back through the week of Newswave and see what you guys had to say based on the different topics that we went over. And of course, we went over quite a few things, whether it was the Nintendo Switch blowing up in Japan even further despite no real big releases going on in the past few weeks. And then, of course, the Epic Game Store, well, kind of spying on you from what we're seeing. So we have a bunch of stuff to go over from Monday through Friday. Also a good way to get caught up in case you missed anything. As always, guys, enjoy these videos. Make sure to hit the like button. It does help out. Make sure you get subscribed because we are heading into the 300,000 subscriber mark, and it's pretty cool to see all of that happen. Let's start today with a little bit of news to kind of keep an eye on, because going into this week, we're going to start to hear a bit about the NPD sales in the US for February. And what do you think? Which system, we'll start with that, which system do you think would actually take the top spot out of the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and the Switch? I'll give you a second because we actually had a typical response and post from Magic Pork on Reset Era, who's been pretty good about this. He mostly posts these leading into the NPDs as they kind of get a look at the numbers ahead of time, and they usually post in percentages to give us an idea as to what was number one, and then they kind of take a percentage of that going down to not quite give away the exact numbers that are generally under embargo, but to give us an idea. It was the Switch. The Switch actually took February by a fair margin, actually, which might be surprising to some people, as there really wasn't a massive game that took place in February that was like this big thing. Like Smash Bros. Didn't launch in February, right? Nothing like that. There was no Pokemon. A lot of games Nintendo has right now are queued up for the back half of this year. But here's actually the post that Magic Pork put up, and you'll see actually he goes down the line with 1 being the Switch, then 0.78. So basically, the PlayStation 4 sold 78% of what the Switch did. The Xbox One sold 62%. So the Xbox One was almost doubled up by the Switch in February. The 3DS is pretty much, I think, almost on its way out, basically. The others, I assume, would be like the NES Classic, Super Nintendo Classic, that might just be kind of left around, or anything else that you can't quite put in any of those other categories. So the Switch is actually up year over year 30%, whereas the other two, the PS4 and the Xbox One, are down about 22 and then 29% from year over year. So it's kind of going the way that we'd expect it to, where the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One are older, so they're kind of dropping off, and the Switch is going into its year that is going to be massive for it. I mean, 2019, looking at the releases and the announcements that we have now, and we're probably going to find out a few more at E3 even, it's going to get out of control in the back half. We're talking about, obviously, Pokemon, Luigi's Mansion, Animal Crossing. Pokemon and Animal Crossing alone could probably carry the entire holiday. Despite a lot of people writing off Animal Crossing, it generally sells over 10 million copies for any of the portable Animal Crossings. And of course, you can throw the Switch into that category because you can play Animal Crossing technically on the go. So it's not going to be shocking, I think, to see the Switch really take over. And of course, we're kind of expecting announcements at some point, possibly towards the end of this year, for the next Xbox and the next PlayStation. And I think Sony and Microsoft even see the decline here. Everyone has a PlayStation 4, I think, at this point. So yeah, but think about it that way. In February, there were no big Switch releases, but they had Anthem, Crackdown. Okay, yeah, Crackdown, I get it. We had a new Far Cry, Metro Exodus. There were a lot of games dropping, but none of them seemed to push the systems. I think that's just because everybody already has a PS4, and well, there's not a huge reason, I guess, to buy an Xbox One if you have a semi-decent PC or if you have a PS4. And starting the week off on Monday, we saw an odd bit of censorship hit Devil May Cry 5 after a patch was pushed that applied a lens flare to a scene to cover up the character model. We also saw a data mine of Smash Bros. That could be pointing to new modes like Stage Builder getting added. 10th Gen says, "That's why I'm moving to PC. I'm sick of console dictatorship. I'm finally free and can relax to a game how it was meant to be enjoyed." So this is an interesting statement because, do you know what one of the big things people are pushing back for game streaming is? Well, it's actually that. It's the fact that if game streaming takes over and you're not downloading your games even to your PC, which is a future that a lot of these companies are pushing for, well, you're not going to be modding them. So if they do decide to do something like censorship like this, you can't do anything about it. You just kind of live with it. So at that point, you have much less control. It's much more restricted. And I'll be honest, I don't think game streaming is going to be viable for a while. I'm thinking like 20 years. I think we're going to be looking into the future, well, at least looking back, kind of like how we look back now on like the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation 1 era, where we probably weren't even thinking about online gaming, and now, 20 years later, we're basically plugged in almost to the internet completely. Like I said, the next step is like actually plugging us in, like a jack on the back of our head or something. We're that connected. We would have never thought about that back with the N64, like 1999 or something, going into that PS2 era. I mean, around then you could go online with them, but we weren't doing what we're doing now, to the point where, we have we're doing Game Pass and stuff, and we're downloading 50 gigabyte games, in a few hours. That's not something that was normal then. So who knows? I mean, 20 years from now, maybe we'll be looking back on this and be like, remember when we used to buy our games in stores and we used to download them and it would take forever with these patches? Now we just hit a button and it starts right up. We were just cavemen back then. Tuesday, we saw Artifact in trouble after the creator of Magic the Gathering, Richard Garfield, left the game, leaving the digital card game completely. We also saw a mod that made Breath of the Wild look really weird on PC by removing the cel-shaded visuals. Sunny Chi says, Valve just released Left 4 Dead 3. That would be amazing. I don't know why Valve is doing what they're doing right now. Like, they're trying to make something like a digital card game like Artifact work, and it had problems from the get-go. A lot of people mentioned that in the comments, and yeah, it did, but the fact that the creator of Magic the Gathering, someone you brought on to try to make this all work, is gone, that's like the biggest thing ever for that game. That basically tells us all we need to know right there, and they said it wasn't even a surprise that they were laid off, so it sounds like the writing was on the wall there. But Artifact, why? Like, there's so many better things they could have done with their time than try to make a digital card game that wasn't free to play out of the gate. It stood no chance against Hearthstone, that's for sure. And it's weird because you just said Left 4 Dead 3, but there's also Half-Life 3, there's the next Team Fortress, they maybe could have done something with Dota. There's a lot of things out there that they could turn around and say, oh, this sequel's coming out, but you gotta get it on Steam. And then the Epic Games Store would scramble instantly. Immediately, they'd go look for an exclusive. It's just Valve and now they're working on VR stuff, and what happened to Valve? They used to be a force in the game development section, and now it's just they're running Steam, so they're making enough money. I guess they don't care. But, I get they might not want to do Half-Life 3, but a Left 4 Dead 3 seems easy to most of us to look at that and say they could develop that. That wouldn't be too bad. They don't have to reinvent the series. They just put out something like Left 4 Dead 2, just a bit more polished and, new maps and everything, and people would go crazy. Wednesday, we saw a Castlevania collection rated in Australia, which could point to an announcement coming soon from Konami with a possible Switch version. We also saw a boycott around Anthem begin after players were frustrated with the updated drop rate for loot. Hyrule says, Dream Castlevania 1, 2, 3, Rondo, the Game Boy Advances, and Symphony. Doubt it would happen, but my God, would I buy it day one? Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, you get the Game Boy Advance games in there. I don't know if they could do the DS ones. That had some touch functionality and stuff to it. But here's my question to the people out there who are Castlevania fans. I have a feeling you would buy it, but I also want to hear from the other people who maybe haven't played these. Would you be more interested in a smaller collection for cheaper, or a larger collection, like something like you mentioned here, with 8, 9 games from Castlevania series packed into a $60 package? Would you rather have something at $6, or maybe 3 of the games for $20? Or do you want everything? Do you want all the... I think, honestly, if they did it right, and it wasn't a junk remaster or even emulation in general, just put it all on one cartridge or one disc or one download file and put it out there, I would prefer to just buy everything at $60 and just have it, rather than have to hope that your favorite game is there, or, the most recognized ones, like Symphony of the Night, it should be obvious. What about some of those Game Boy Advance games? That seems like that would be something that'd be easy to move over. I would like to have a large Castlevania collection. Make it physical, too, by the way. Collector's edition, the whole thing. And put it out there for its anniversary or the Konami's anniversary and everything. That would be neat. I would prefer that. But let me know if you'd like a smaller collection or a massive big blowout of all these Castlevania games for $60. MD says, some of us are already boycotting EA as a whole. Welcome to the club. So I actually don't doubt this as much anymore, because obviously things like Battlefield have struggled. Battlefield 5 did not do well, and they let us know that. It really came in under expectations. Now, it seems like Anthem is just struggling in general. The sales have not been, I think, what they need them to be, and people are already starting to move on to something like The Division 2. I'm actually playing The Division 2 now, and I'm having more fun. I think it's better. I think it's better than Anthem. So That's not good. And I say that because of BioWare, not really because of EA. But that's kind of an issue right now. And now we're having organized boycotts. It's not even just like people are like, I won't buy that. People are actively going out of their way to try to form and bring together people to just not play the game. That's how you know you're messing up. But I will at least say people seem to like Apex Legends, so there's that, I guess. But that's free. And you know EA, they want to have those loot boxes, those microtransactions, and that $60 price tag. But maybe EA should start looking at the bigger picture, because one of their games is doing very well with engagement. And if they're that set on engagement over everything, make it free to play and put it out. Seriously, EA, what outside of FIFA, which you seem to sell easily, maybe Anthem should have been free to play. I know there was a large investment there, but would more people have been playing it and trying it rather than the people who are like, $60, I'll wait for that to drop to 10 or go free to play? Because if you just end up making it free to play down the road, what was the whole point? Thursday, we saw Google hire on a gaming industry veteran, Jade Raymond, as vice president of what we assume to be their gaming division for their upcoming streaming service and possible game console. We also saw Switch sales continue to improve in Japan despite a lack of a heavy-hitting release. Kyle says, I don't know when the last time I was able to say that Google has me excited. Can't wait to see what you've got to show, Google. Even if it's a bad console, it might be enough to drive more competition among the big three. And that is a good point. Some people are concerned that it's going to start getting a bit crowded, and that is a fair concern, but at some point, these companies will compete harder if there are just more places for your dollars to go. I mean, we're already working with cell phones that have free to play that, yes, I know some people are saying right now, cell phones pulling a lot of money. Seriously, that's why a lot of these companies are going there. Nintendo's actually getting some of their IPs and putting it on phones because it makes money. I mean, Fire Emblem's made $500 million on phones, so yeah, that's where they're all going. They're not leaving the console space, but they are at least looking at that and saying, okay, yeah, maybe we should start moving some of our IPs or just game development to phone games. It works, but Google entering the console space would be interesting, but I think a lot of people are still tentative on it. They're not sure and they're hesitant, and I get that, because you don't really think of Google and go, oh wow, Google's going to bring out this awesome console. You think of Google and you say, oh, they'll abandon it after a year, but it's up to Google. The burden's on them to make us want to buy their system or subscribe to their streaming service, which people are definitely hesitant on. But if they show up with cool games, interesting ones, things we've heard about before, and they bring them in, yeah, maybe some people will try it. Honestly, if they have some cool new IPs or something that's exclusive enough to make you buy the system, well, that would at least be interesting and would, as you're saying, kind of push some of the competition to do some bigger things. Especially Microsoft. Let's push them a little bit. Just a Gaming Geek says, one of the reasons that Switch sales are increasing in Japan might be because of how it has become the go-to system for anime and niche games. We are seeing a ton of visual novels making their way there, and with no more Vita, then the Switch becomes the obvious choice. I do think that the Vita kind of fading into the background is kind of propelling Switch sales, especially now that the Vita is pretty much done in production. It's been officially announced, and to some people that's enough to say, okay, well, I guess we'll just move on to the Switch. Because if you look at the Switch, yeah, it is a better Vita. Like, if you look at it, it's a Vita that makes more sense, comes with a way to plug it into your TV in the box. You don't have to do anything crazy or buy extra cables or anything. It's there, and it's designed to also work as a home console. So yeah, for people who don't want the dock though, and we do get a mini Switch, which I think a lot of people are expecting at this point, over a more powerful Switch first anyway, then I think then you'll really get the Vita fans, the people who are on board with the Vita, start to move over. Because let's say the Switch Mini comes out and there's no Joy-Con controllers attachments, there's no output to a TV that comes with it, you're kind of buying a Vita, just a more upgraded Vita at that point, right? It still has the Japanese support and everything. It's just Nintendo instead of Sony, which means you'll probably get some actual games on it, let's be real, for the handheld, because Sony abandoned that thing, and you can use SD cards. So yeah, you'll probably see that propel heavier in Japan just when that Mini comes out. Finally, on Friday, we saw Rebellion announce several new games for the Sniper Elite series, with V2 Remaster and V3 Ultimate going to Switch, as well as a brand new game in the series currently in development. The Epic Games Store also came under fire after users noticed the storefront start to pull information from your PC as well as your Steam client. Waffle Fry says, Sniper Elite Remastered now on Nintendo Labo VR. You know what? I knew it. That's why that one Labo kit was like a gun. Actually, you know what's really funny is if they took the Xbox original version or the PC original version of Sniper Elite, that actually might work in that Labo kit. That would actually be pretty funny. Although it might be a bit too mature for what Nintendo's going for with foldable cardboard for ages 6 and up. But hey, there you go. It's something. More than likely, it's going to be very cartoony, very it's not going to be a super graphical heavy game or anything. It's going to be a more cartoony style blaster gun thing, but I mean, that would be pretty funny. They are working on a VR game at least. I think it's going to be more for the Oculus Vive and PlayStation VR, not necessarily for a Labo that's targeted towards a younger audience, but I mean, I guess you never know. Wolfsight says, the nice thing about GOG is that all of their games are DRM free and the client is completely optional. Yeah, so I think that's the other thing that people look at the Epic Game Store and wag their finger at even more. It's because GOG really doesn't do DRM or any of this crazy. So let me put one thing out there and make it set it straight. A lot of programs spy on you without technically telling you, I guess. I mean, it's in their terms of service. It's buried half the time. You know, that big accept, you know, you got to accept to use it speech, the big things like, you know, thousands of words that no one reads. A lot of times it says something in there about collecting data half the time, but still there are rules and regulations around that, and people are thinking the Epic Game Store is they're breaking those right now. So that's going to be interesting enough to see if this actually gains any traction and goes anywhere. But yeah, GOG in general, they laugh at these other places that do DRM and all this stuff. Denuvo is a joke for GOG at this point. They just make fun of it. So yeah, I guess GOG technically makes the Epic Game Store look really bad, but what's going to happen to the Epic Game Store? Technically snooping around your PC and spying on your Steam client? Well, we'll find out if anything actually happens from that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for the Saturday show. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is what we just talked about, the Epic Game Store, snooping around on the PC. What do you think about that? And then, of course, Switch sales, not only in Japan, but the NPDs, taking the NPD in February. What's going to happen towards the second half of this year? Because I also asked around, and it sounds like March's NPD, it sounds like that might be for the Switch as well. And Devil May Cry and other games, you know, Sekiro and Division 2 came out this month. So what's going on? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.